Okay, Mr. Strong, welcome. And we're going to throw it to you to open us up for our virtual town hall meeting tonight.
All right, thank you, Lance. I'm Todd Strom, Superintendent of South Sioux City Schools, and thank you to everyone that has already joined us. If you have friends or family or anyone that you know that may be interested in some important information tonight about our school plans and our reopening plans specifically, please reach out to them right now. Let them know about this broadcast. It's live. It will be recorded, but it's available live right now on YouTube and Facebook. And there will be a chance to ask questions and chat. So we want to get as many people on here and listening and hear feedback from as many people as possible tonight. So the lines are open. So we ask that you listen to the presentation. We have several people with us tonight that have some important information to share. I'd like to welcome, we have all of our cabinet. We have certain principals that will be talking about plans at their schools. And then we also have our SSCA leadership members. Welcome to Suzanne and Carrie, who have been along the way working with us on pieces of information. And so they are also available for questions. We do have an agenda that we're going to follow. And so many of the people on the screen will be talking tonight. As you can see, I'm excited about this Sunday. I've been practicing my graduation speech and very excited that this day is finally going to be here where we get a chance to honor the class of 2020. I know Mrs. Odell and her team have been making many plans, and it's going to be a nice ceremony. Not quite, it's going to be different, but it's going to be memorable, and it's going to be very unique to the class of 2020, which it should be because they are a unique class. So I want to thank them personally for everything they've done during this time and throughout the year. At this time, I'd like to get the agenda started just by sharing a big thanks to everyone on this screen that's been involved and all those that have been working that are employees, board members, our leadership team, anyone that's been involved with South Sioux City Community Schools. It's been a strenuous time, and there's a lot of decisions that have been made in a hurry, many more to be made, and they're all made with stakeholder input. And so I wanted to share what that looks like. And some of that stakeholder input is from people that aren't directly in the district. So Nebraska Department of Education, we are working with a national partner called Instruction Partners. They have also been involved in school reopening plans across the nation. And we were selected as a pilot in the state of Nebraska for them to partner with in cooperation with NDE. And that's been great. They've given us some strong direction and guidance and just evidence and information of what's going on in other states. And then just recently, the state of Nebraska did use basically the skeleton of the plan we've been working on all summer with them and internally as a guide for the rest of the state. And so we're going to share the details tonight, some of the details that are inside that skeleton. So I would like to share my screen and just talk a little bit about that timeline and what the decision-making process looked like. So as you can see, the timeline, many of those dates are passed. We've stayed fairly true to this timeline. Obviously, tonight is our virtual town hall meeting. And then we have some information that's out there that's very important. So pass on the word to parents. You have some choice, but we would definitely want to know information that's been sent home by July 31st. And then these are the plans for the first day of school, August 13th, for some of our students, if you're new to the building, and then the 14th for everyone. I talked about many stakeholder groups being involved. Well, one of the guides that we've used along this way is just to make sure that the right decisions are made and everyone has had input and that those decisions are made in a way that is based on evidence and fact. We have used this decision-making chart. So as you can see, there's all kinds of different decisions that have to be made on different topics. So for example, tonight you're going to hear about an overview of the elementary schedule and staffing plan. And Mr. Swadek, Dan Swadek, is elementary principal at Cardinal, is the recommender or the lead of the elementary principal group on that. And these people, the directors and the rest of the elementary principal team, have had to agree. And then the principals are actually the boots on the ground, if you will, the people that have to go out and implement that. And then along the way, we get information and we inform and communicate with these groups. And then ultimately, decisions have to be given a stamp of approval, and many of those lie with me, but there are some different ones. So just wanted to share that decision-making process and how things have been decided and will continue to be decided along the way. So at this time, I'd like to let Lance, communications, like I said, been a huge piece to this, which Lance is our director of communications and foundation. And I'd like to let him share what work has been going on there, how things are going to continue to be communicated. And then if there's any questions, feel free to ask those along the way. So Lance, all yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Strom. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I just want to explain a little bit. I think it's super important for everybody to understand where to find the reopening plan, not only today, but the upcoming days as we get closer to school start date. And then even once the school starts, there's going to be obviously more and more information and updates. And we want to have a central hub, if you will, of where you can find that information. But if you just Google SSC Cardinals, you're going to come to the first choice is usually always going to be our SSC Cardinals homepage, which takes you to here. Under hot topics right here, I'm going to keep it right up towards the top, and it's going to be a reopening plan. And it'll also usually always be down towards the bottom of that main page too in the reopening plan under announcement. So it's also there. So there's a couple ways to get to the same page right here. Whereas today I had kind of an announcement up here about our town hall meeting tonight. Then it went into a little bit of explanation of how we got here and some of the other thoughts and whatnot. I won't cover now. You can read that later. But one thing we need to discuss here is this yellow box right here. And right now we happen to be in the yellow phase. So I've got the box colored yellow. If we would go to one of the other colors, let's say we go down to green or over to orange, I will change the color of the box accordingly, and that tells you the key of kind of where we're at and what you can look for right here. Usually I'll change the wording here too, so you can read it as well. But I think it's pretty important to point out, these are not the entire plan down here. This is just kind of a hub and some basics on some main information about each one, and we will change this as needed or add to it as well. But typically this is going to stay pretty much the same information. So you have kind of explaining what if it's a low spread or a minimal spread. So I'm going to only talk about the yellow. That's what we're in right now. If minimal spread, then this masks are required for staff and masks are only encouraged for students. That's the kind of things. Mrs. Eckhart's going to talk at length about the safety plan in a minute. And I just want to kind of talk about how to use this site. You go down through here and you can see the elementary staffing and schedule information. And then down towards the bottom, you can click on these links down here. The blue links should tell you more about those two main plans that we're talking about today. And then the black box shows you where you can click if you want to do the opt-out version of the virtual school option. And that will take you to a form or an application to fill out on that. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Eckhart here, and she can share her screen and talk a little bit about the safety plan.
Lance, before, thank you for that. We are getting some chat on YouTube, and the answer to that question is yes, you can ask questions during this time. Somebody was asking, so please listen first, but then if there's questions remaining, feel free to ask those, and we'll stop periodically, and we want to interact. We want to make it an interactive session. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you there, Becky. Thank you for taking
That's a good question. I think, too, there's a thing that we want to have questions. We're going to add a frequently asked questions part to that web page that I was showing, too. And that's going to be critical as we learn more and try and answer the questions. And obviously, we will anticipate that other people have the same questions. The other thing I want to add to that is those links that link to the whole plan, like what Mrs. Eckhart's going to show right now, are Google documents. So those are the live safety plans or the safety documents they're using to create and to keep notes and all that. So it's important that we do that so we don't have multiple versions of this out there. So thank you, Mrs. Eckhart.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to talk a little bit about the safety plan that you can find on our district website. For our conversation today, I'm going to walk you through where we are today, which is the yellow phase. We are in the directive health measure phase 3, and we are also on the Dakota County COVID dial as minimal spread at this time, so we're yellow at this time too. And so I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about the differences between the two. Probably most of us are real familiar with the directive health measure because that's been around for quite a few months. We've had a lot of media on that, and right now we're in phase 3, which hopefully will move to phase green. We'd like to move that way before moving the other. But there is a new thing that was released for Dakota County on Monday, and it is the COVID community risk level dial. That provides a summary of our current conditions in our community. And so really the Dakota County Health Department looks at a variety of data to determine where our dial is at. This is different than our directed health measure. It also has shades of color similar to these 4 colors. However, with the COVID risk level dial, it is updated on a weekly basis. So each Monday they will revisit the data and could change each Monday and more frequently throughout the week, depending on community spread. So if we have a large outbreak in our community, we could move throughout the week, whereas the directive health measure, as you're all familiar with, is much more slower to change. The COVID community dial is configured on our community data. They look at the positivity rate that we are experiencing in our community, the percentage of available ICU beds, the number of vents available, contact tracing that the county health department is doing at that time, and clusters of outbreak within our community. So there's a variety of factors that go within that. So when you're looking at the different colors that the media put out, I would just encourage you to look at whether you're considering the directive health measure or the COVID risk dial. Both, of course, are going to come into play with the school district. We will be working in close collaboration with Dakota County Health. They're a wonderful partner of ours, and we will try to remain where they are on that dial, although if our reopening plan may be slower than theirs. However, if they would go to red, either on the risk dial because of an outbreak near or around our schools, we may have to quickly move to red. So it really will depend on the information we are getting from our community, Dakota County Health. Before I move on, I'll ask those on the screen, are there any clarifying questions regarding that information? Okay, great. So keep moving forward regarding our health measures that you see here. We will be requiring masks for all of our staff. And I will talk a little bit more about masks later on. And we will be asking all of our students as well to wear masks. We will be providing a variety of mask options for our students that I will talk about a little bit later. We will do, we are upping our practicing prevention practices within all of our buildings, promoting good hand washing as we always do, making time set aside within our school schedule to do hand sanitizing or hand washing on a frequent basis. We'll be doing some education with all of our students on best practice hand washing. We are cleaning and disinfecting in our facilities management team has done a phenomenal job in purchasing a variety of new tools and resources that will allow us to clean and disinfect our classrooms quickly and thoroughly. And all of our drinking fountains are closed at this time. We are encouraging students to bring water bottles, and when they don't, we will have access to paper cups so that students can access water throughout the day. Transporting students, we will be still doing busing, although it may look a little different. Students that do ride the bus will be asked to have a mask on prior to boarding the bus. If students do not come with a mask, we will provide that for them. We have installed hand sanitizers at the entry of all of our buses, and we will ask all students to hand sanitize prior to boarding and when exiting. And then we will be social distancing, seating students either with siblings on a seat or one student per seat. We may need to assign seats. We're still working out the details of who will be riding the bus, but we will make sure that we practice good hygiene and PPE while riding the bus.
Mrs. Eckhart,
Yeah.
chat question from a parent. Can we provide our own masks for our kids?
Absolutely. We will provide several different options at school, but really, parents, we want you and your child to feel as comfortable with the mask as possible. And so if you've found a mask that your child will wear and you want them to wear it to school, that's no problem. We are encouraging either cloth or paper masks. They need to cover both the nose and the mouth. But yes, your children do not have to wear our provided masks. They may provide their own each day. Any other questions, Mr. Stroud?
Yeah, there's another question here from someone. They said the health department has the county as yellow and they have theirs labeled as moderate. So why does the school label theirs as minimal?
That's a very good question. Again, we're looking at both the directive health measure and the COVID community dial working in partnership. So it's not going to be an exact match of what you see for the health department to us, but we're trying to work in collaboration, making the best decisions for schools.
Got some comments that say it's a great plan. And what about special needs kids?
Absolutely. I will get to that in just a couple rows.
All right.
As we work through here, entering and exiting school buildings, each of our building principals has been working on a plan so students can safely enter and depart during the day. We will be working to ensure students can hand sanitize and put on a mask as they enter the school building if they don't arrive with one. And we have installed hand hygiene stations throughout our school buildings in, if not every classroom, nearly every classroom at this point. And the same will be said for wearing masks as we exit the school building. We'll have our students wear them if they're taking their mask home. And again, students can take the school provided mask home if the parents want to wash them at home and then they wear them to school the next day. That is no problem. If parents would prefer that the children leave their masks at school and we wash them in the evening, we're happy to do that. We would ask the students to wear them until they exit the school building, and then we will have school staff, once students are outside collecting the masks, that we will ensure are laundered so that they are clean the next day when students come to school. Serving meals, our building principals are working very hard on a plan to safely serve meals. In most buildings, we have come up with a plan so that students can still eat in the commons area, but we will be greatly reducing the number of students in the commons lunchroom during service time. Tables will be staggered with much less students per table than we have had in the past. Students will wear their mask through the serving line till they get their tray, until they're seated. And again, they'll be spaced out at the lunch tables. They will remove their mask, eat, then put their mask back on before getting up to empty their tray, just trying to keep anytime students might not be able to social distance, ensuring that those masks are on, so we're promoting safety.
Ms. Eckhart, just so we're getting a lot of chat about the schedules and what classes will look like. Just a heads up to those that are listening, that's coming up. So hold your questions, please. Our principals will be talking to you about what your classes are going to look like at the high school, middle school, and elementary. There's a question in there. I know it's already been covered, but there's a few questions about students being required to wear masks, highly recommended, and they are cloth. That's come up a few times. The ones that are issued and the ones that we would recommend would be cloth.
Yes, thank you. Students are available to wear paper masks. We'll have some paper masks at school available for students. If you prefer to send your child in a paper mask, as long as it covers their nose and mouth and wraps around their chin and fits snugly, we will approve it. Just the life of paper masks is much less, typically only a couple hours, unless they get damp, and then it's much less than that, where the cloth masks typically can be worn longer. And so we are going to provide cloth masks in most cases, unless there's a reason for us to provide the paper mask.
Becky, we had a question from a student about students wearing a plastic face shield.
Great question. I've had many conversations with our Dakota County Health Department on that. Face shields certainly are okay to wear as long as accompanied with a cloth mask. So you could wear your cloth mask and put your face shield over it as additional protection. But the guidance and research coming out is those cloth masks provide the most protection when we're not able to social distance. They contain the droplets. The shields do not contain any droplets. And so we have been directed by our Dakota County Health that students need to wear the cloth mask. And if they choose to wear a shield, that's completely fine, as long as it's in addition to the cloth mask.
So they asked about taking temperatures at the beginning of the day.
Yes, we will not be taking temps as students arrive. And again, that was something we worked on in partnership with Dakota County Health. We certainly encourage parents, if they can, to take temps at home. Again, we will be sending home communication on symptoms that parents should watch for and not send their child to school if they present any of those symptoms, but we will not be taking temps of all students and staff when they arrive at our building.
All right, that's all for now. We're getting a lot of questions that are going to be answered later on in the agenda. So
I'll just try to wrap it up with these last couple things. Transitioning as we move throughout our buildings, our common spaces, and our hallways, the building principals are working very hard to minimize the traffic in our hallways and keep the flow going one way or the other so that we minimize the congregation of students. Again, students will be wearing masks when they're transitioning and throughout the school day, but we also want to do some other precautions so that we can limit where there might be large gatherings of students. And then our last area is for our students that would be considered in the vulnerable population. Our school nurses and our case managers will work closely with those parents, and we will respect the choice that parents make should they choose, in collaboration with their physician, to have their child do remote learning. We will develop a plan to support the students through remote learning. And if those students are able to come to school and that's cleared by both their parents and their physician, we will make sure we wrap support around them so that we can best protect them with the practices that we'll have in place in our school district.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that there's several questions about sanitation and cleaning, but Doyle Smith, our Director of Maintenance, is up next. And I know Lance is going to work with him, I think, to show some of the stuff that he's using to keep us all safe.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Strom. Briefly like to touch base with everybody about the cleaning and the disinfecting we're doing in the district daily and nightly. As you can see behind me, there's a lot of products there. Some of them are new, some of them are old, but we're trying everything we can, and we're using different things for different items and different areas to try to do the best job possible. The custodial group and the maintenance group and the contractors that we've had in our district and the cabinet and the principals have been very supportive of the cleaning, and I'd like to thank all of them for that. As we've talked about, we purchased a Clorox 360. That is a machine that electrostatically disinfects and sanitizes it. Just surrounds, like it encapsulates the whole desk, does the bottoms, the tops, the sides, does a great job, and you don't have to wipe it off. Very little odor. The odor goes away in just a few minutes, and it's one of the best machines that we could purchase on the market right now. So I'm very happy not to only have one, but have several. We do have foggers. That's for the big areas. If we would have an issue where we need to do a warehouse or something large quickly. But unfortunately, that all has to be wiped off. As you can see, it's a nonstop project for us, and we're not going to let anybody down. We're going to work hard and be successful. Going to touch base a little bit about just a few other things that we're doing in the district. The district has purchased some bottle-filled drinking fountains for every building. We're installing touchless paper towels in all the bathrooms. We have hand sanitizer stations everywhere, and more to come. We've also been working on air conditioning filters, bringing in fresh air, and we've been also reading, studying, and listening to what other places are doing to be successful on the air quality. Any questions for me?
I think there's no immediate ones that I know of. I think some will pop up as we go on, as people continue to listen, which is great. That's what we want. Listen first, and then there'll be time for questions as we go on. One of the things that people need to know that are listening is that we're actually in school. We have kids and teachers teaching right now in summer school, and we are doing all the things we're talking about right now in a smaller setting. And so wanted Tracy Howman, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction Assessment, to join us, please, and just talk a little bit about that. And we are doing all these things we're talking about right now with that group. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Yes, summer school is going on right now for elementary, and they're doing a great job with that. Big thanks to Cami Holtby for her leadership as lead teacher with that, and all of these summer school teachers doing an amazing job. And I just reached out to Cami earlier today and asked for a quick update, and I got lots of excellent information from her. Things are going really well, and we're getting lots of good information back from them about some possible areas where we could consider planning in for more support for students. Maybe we need to build up some opportunities for them to learn some new routines and things like that. So it's an excellent opportunity for us as a district to feel things out and see how all of these new things for all of us are working. And a huge, huge thanks to those teachers for supporting students through that, and for the students too, and letting us know, what's challenging for them and what's easy for them. As far as things like wearing masks, it sounds like that is going well. Obviously, some students need some extra reminders, but they're doing it and they're complying with that. And I think everyone is prioritizing the safety aspect of it. And yet we teach and that's what we do. And so sometimes little ones need extra reminders for those types of things. We have our upper elementary students engaging with some online learning opportunities, and there too, it's a similar situation to what we found last spring with, for example, sixth graders who were new to having a one-to-one device and engaging in remote learning. We need to teach some of those routines and procedures just like we would in a classroom. So again, huge thanks to them and for all they're doing for kids right now, and also for the information that they're providing us to help us prepare better for when we return to school in a very short time. Did you want me to go ahead and speak to some of the instructional planning for return to school at this time, or is that later?
Yeah, if you wish to speak about that, we have the principals are going to speak each about their respective plans at the high school, middle school, and elementary. But if you want to set the stage for that, that'd be great.
Sure. So I will try to give a broad overview, and hopefully that will help to set the stage for what we're going to hear from Dan and Tom and Ashley here shortly. So again, like Mr. Strom had mentioned, we started our work with instruction partners. It feels like a long time ago. It really was just a couple of weeks, but we've covered a lot of ground in that time. So obviously, probably to everyone, we start with the phase that we're in terms of the information Becky just reviewed as far as the health measures in place, what phase we're in terms of health and safety in our community. Based on that, we arrived at some priorities for us and what was our vision for success for students for the year, what areas would we prioritize if we had to make some decisions about virtual versus in-person learning, and what learners need support more than others. For example, very young students, I think it's obvious to most of us too there how they tend to need a lot more guidance from a teacher in a live situation. So those are the kinds of things we began with, and with that then we worked through how that could look for instruction, pre-kindergarten through 12th grade, all of our school buildings, and that's been a really challenging process. There are so many moving parts. It is really, really difficult work, and the team has been amazing, and principals have offered some really great insights, and it's been a very collaborative thing. But as Emily Freitag from Instruction Partners tells us all the time, there is no great option. All of these things involve some sacrifice and some trying to help each other so we can arrive at the best possible option for kids. So that's where we started. The hybrid schedule, if we were to end up in that phase, which is the orange phase, by the way, on the color-coded chart, that is the most challenging. And because, again, probably obvious, but I don't want to make any assumptions, we're offering some school in person and some remotely. Staffing that gets really challenging too. And knowing that every single one of our people here, all of you, we're all essential. We really are. And everyone has a big job to do every day under every circumstance. So one of the decisions we made was to staff a remote, a virtual school, essentially. That is very appealing in many ways. It's difficult in other ways, but that allows us to keep a lot more continuity and consistency in the buildings, especially at elementary. It's just really hard to make one change in that type of a schedule without everything having a giant domino effect. So that was one of the decisions we made early on. Super challenging too with staff shared between buildings, by the way. So trying to do all we can to meet the needs of every kid. And so that's tough, but that's always our goal. And that's kind of been our guiding principle as we work through this. So instructionally, again, I think there's a good phrase, put the big rocks in first. And what we identified those to be are the social and emotional aspect, making sure that kids and staff feel safe and secure. That's foundation. From there, in terms of instructional content, this is guidance from Department of Education. This is what national experts are saying too. Focus on ELA and math and build from there. And so that looks a little bit different at each level. At elementary, that means we're starting there with lots of time. We're trying to build in more time into our ELA and math blocks so that teachers have the time that they need, both to just reacclimate to the learning environment with kids and provide what's called just-in-time remediation. So we're starting instruction from the beginning on grade level, current grade level. But we know that students will have some gaps from the spring. We can make that assumption. So with that, we need some opportunities, informal opportunities, some checks on how kids are doing. Okay, and this particular type of content is coming up. I'm going to maybe do a quick informal assessment, so to speak, or check in with students to see if they have the prerequisites firmly in place. And if they don't, I'm going to pair that up with my instruction that way. So knowing that, again, we knew we would have to build schedules for students that allowed for that to happen. So for elementary, we've increased our ELA and math time. And for middle school and high school, I should just distinguish there, but we have those core content areas double blocked. And that does look a little bit different at middle and high school. And there's more to come about that from Mrs. Odell and Mr. Coviello. Let's see. I think that's, oh, one other thing I do need to mention too. We know too that we're planning for the unknown. So because we have 6 elementary school buildings, and even at middle and high school, we have multiple teachers teaching the same subject, content, grade level, what have you, were we to have a situation come up where we're going into remote learning for everyone, we need to really be very, very consistent about instructional pacing across the district. So for example, if we're looking at 5th grade math, it just doesn't work for students to have, say, one building a week ahead of another building. So that's something we're also going to be really mindful of and cognizant of as we work together in teams to plan and make sure that we don't do anything that could potentially end up in gaps or overlaps for students if we were to end up in a situation where we have to do remote learning. Those will be things that we'll be working with PLC teams, teachers, principals on in the next couple of weeks. And we have a lot of work still to do, but that's a good foundation for where we started with the scheduling and staffing for the different levels, I think.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Tracy. We'll try to respond to some of those questions on chat as they pop up, but we'll hit a lot of them later on. But just a few that have popped up, yes, clubs and sports are going, sports are already going. Clubs are going to be in session, but travel will be a little different and how those meetings look. And then lunch, just stay tuned because we're going to be covering lunch. We're going to be covering busing. All of your principals are going to be talking about what that looks like in their respective buildings. So if you're an elementary kid, middle school kid, or high school or parent, we'll talk about that a little bit. And recess is a big question right now. So I'm sure Mr. Swadek will talk a little bit about recess and what that looks like. And there's a question about if the chemicals that are being used for disinfecting are what they are, and they are all approved chemicals. Doyle, if you just want to touch on that quickly, they have a label that will guide us on that.
Right. All the products we use have a MSDS sheet on the bottles. even the spray bottles that we're making up for the classrooms. It's a CDC approved product, like all of them. And that's what they're recommending that we use in the district.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And we have some comments on there from some parents regarding just some of the chat. You know, this is an informational meeting. We want questions, but we want all the questions to be good, pertinent questions. But there's some very important questions out there that we need to answer, and we'll try to answer them. If we don't get them answered tonight, we will definitely capture them in a document and have a, like Lance said earlier, have an FAQ available on our website. So thank you. Next, let me get back to the agenda. We have Mrs. Odell with the high school schedule and any questions you might have for her.
Thanks, Mr. Strom. We did take another look at the high school schedule. We knew that we kind of needed to revamp after the end of the year that we had. Our students did an exceptional job of learning online towards the end of the school year, but we did have a significant number of students and courses that were not completed. And so we looked at building a schedule that enabled us to recoup any credit loss and learning loss, really as quickly as we could. So we did develop a new schedule. The counselors have worked tirelessly over the summer, that we're very, very grateful for their work, to put together student schedules. They are wrapping those items up as quickly as they can. And so very soon the student schedules will be available on PowerSchool. The schedule that we built, we wanted to look at maximizing instructional time, recouping any loss that we incurred at the end of last year, and then really trying to make sure that we're getting that core area, we're getting the time that we need. So we did double block all the cores. Essentially, that provides double the amount of time in the core areas as we used to have. When we finalize the schedule, the student schedules and the staff schedule, we will send that out as quickly as we can. Students, I would say that it's just very, very important that you continue to monitor your email. That is really an essential for us in how we're going to communicate. We'll send Connect Ed calls and things like that, but the quickest way that you're going to know information is through your email. Like I said, sports and everything, it's really nice to see kids back in the building and coaches back in the building. Everybody's done a nice job of maintaining a safe environment. So we're excited about that, and we're excited to have kids back with us.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Odell. Okay, we'll move on to the middle school, and Mr. Coviello is with us to share that and his administrative team. So welcome, Mr. Coviello.
Thank you, Mr. Strom. Middle school is going to be all day, every day, just like a regular, like we did in the past. We're going to stagger classes release time so that only one grade level is going to be in the hallway at once, just to practice as much safe social distancing as we can. With close to 900 kids in the building, we have to do that. So they'll get let out at different times. Same with the end of the day, they're going to be let out at different times. One thing to note that maybe not everybody knows is school starts at 8:05 this year instead of 8:10. So we have not met with Mike Penny from Lunchtime Solutions yet, but we have ideas of, I've seen what elementary's got in mind, but we're thinking of doing a grab and go breakfast. So when kids come in, if they choose, they can grab their breakfast and head right to class. There won't be any lingering in the hallways like we have in the past. We have to get to where we're going to practice be as safe as we possibly can. So, and we'll limit locker visits. This year, all students, including sixth grade, will have Chromebooks with backpacks. So that should be able to help us limit locker visits as much as we can. Lunch and recess is going to be tricky. We figured just this afternoon, myself and Mrs. Crow and Mr. Erickson calculated we can still do lunch in the lunchroom. It'll be different. It'll be a little bit longer because we need to get kids in and out and keep safe distance. We have enough room in our front foyer, our front hallway, to add some tables out there to distance kids out better. And then, yes, we will have recess. We're going to work on safety procedures for that, just to keep our kids as safe as we can. We expect kids to have their masks on all the time. So that's the expectation we've got. Just like Mrs. Eckhart said, we've got plenty of options for kids for masks. You're welcome to bring your own. So our number one concern is we want the kids in school, and we need them to be safe, adults and students. I think that's about it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Coviello. There's some questions you talked about a little bit. Ban, would you and Mrs. Odell want to just give a quick, what's your thoughts? Like, we know the plans aren't finalized yet, but what's your quick thoughts about what ban might look like at the high school and middle school? I don't care who goes first. Maybe Mrs. Odell.
Yep, sure. At the high school level, again, we're finalizing schedules. We know it's going to look a little bit different than it has in the past. Students, we're going to have to keep them apart. Choir also, we know that those are really dangerous activities if we don't follow what we're supposed to do. But if we do it in a safe way, then we're going to be just fine. And so we want to make sure that we are looking at the proper, social distancing items when it comes to band and choir. We are planning to offer them, but we're also planning to offer them in a safe way. And so they'll look a little bit different. We'll have to have more space between students. When that happens, we might have fewer students in a room, which means we might have more sections offered than we typically have. We will utilize outdoors as much as we can. So those are the kind of the fine details that we're still trying to develop for a building this large. So thanks for being patient with us. It is important to us that those classes continue to get offered and those clubs continue to get offered.
Thank you.
We're very similar. Mrs. Daly, she's always got fun ideas that she's going to share with me. She's got some ideas. But we're fortunate in the middle school. We've got large spaces, a few, 3 or 4 very large spaces we can utilize for band and choir. We will have band and choir and all of our electives like we have in the past. So rest assured, you'll get to go to those classes as well.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Coviello. For those of you that are on the chat, Lance Swanson shared out again the information, but most of these questions you need to read. You need to read for the answer, and they're all included in information that's being shared. So please look at what he's sharing on chat, because we won't be able to. Some of the answers to these questions have already been given, and you're going to have to go back and find them. So sorry about that. All right. Mr. Swadik is representing our elementary principal team, and they have been collaborating on their plans. So, most of our elementary plans look very similar. And so he's going to share out what has been decided there. Welcome, Mr. Swadik.
Thank you, Mr. Strom. Good evening, everybody. Like Mr. Strom said, we have been collaborating a lot, and our plans are very similar, but our buildings are also different. So there are some aspects of the plan that might be tweaked or changed a little bit based on the building and what it looks like. But I can share with you that we'll be in school all day, every day. Arrival and dismissal, there's been a lot of conversation about that. One change there is that our arrival students will be let in the buildings at 7:45 this morning, in the morning instead of 7:30. And that has to do with, like Mr. Coviello talked about, not getting groups of kids all together in the school at one time. So 7:45, the doors will be opened. Our breakfast will be, they grab and go, they grab it and they go in the room and eat with their teachers in there. And the dismissal will be similar to the arrival, that they'll be coming in at different parts of the building so that we're not all in one area. So all the principals have been working on that. The buildings are a little bit different, so it won't be exactly the same at every building, but we are working on having our kids come in different doors so that not everybody is huddling up in one area. We are asking all students to wear masks. As Mrs. Heilman, Dr. Heilman mentioned, we are extending our schedules for our math and reading to the lost learning last spring. We are going to have extended math and reading, add minutes to those reading and math blocks. We are encouraging hand washing often, and we will go through the protocols of what proper hand washing looks like for the students. We're staggering our lunches. This is a big one because we always have a lot of people in the lunchroom. We are starting lunch a little bit earlier in the elementary, so we will have one grade level at a time in the commons, and they'll be able to eat there. Just they're spread apart and about 6 students per table. But because we're eating earlier, we are also going to be providing a snack in the afternoon for our kiddos that have to eat early in the day. Recesses, I know that's the most important thing. We are going to have recess. Or for kids is the most important thing. We are going to have normal recess. They will wash their hands on their way out and on the way back in, and it will be one grade level at a time out at recess. So again, that presents some challenges for us with staffing for supervision out at recess, but the principals are working hard on that. And I touched on breakfast, and I think that's about it for at the elementary level. We are working on all those right now, and some of the plans are pretty set in stone, and others we're still collaborating and talking through.
Thank you, Mr. Swanek. Couple quick questions. Mrs. Eckhart, if if a student wants to wear a mask at recess, will they be able to?
Yes.
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 How about there's another question on here about are temperatures being taken? I think Becky already answered that
No,
one.
they are not.
There's one about open houses. I know the SFCA leadership.
We do not have open houses.
Yeah. And
You know, Todd, I can talk about that a little bit at the elementary level. The open houses where the students always found out who their teacher is. And so that we just discussed today as elementary principals, the parent mailing that will be going out, we will have an insert in there with who their teacher is, because the first time they'll come in contact with their teacher then will be that first day of school.
Yeah. And so it'll look a little different. The first days of school are obviously going to include much more of the relationship building and procedures. And so there will be time to reduce that anxiety and fear that sometimes happen. Those processes that happen during the open house will now have to be moved to the actual first day, second day of school. So we'll definitely make sure to maintain the social emotional well-being of our students as well as their health. There's a lot of questions about social distancing and such that'll come out in the actual plans. And so continue to read about those plans. Some of it's laid out there, but some of it is still being developed. So, all right, moving on in the agenda then. Thank you to our principals for sharing. There are some questions regarding transportation and busing, and so that is our next topic for those of you that are asking about that. And we'd like to welcome Erin. She's our Director of Transportation and also our Director of Business Operations and our Director of Food Services, so Nutrition Services. So wears many hats. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you, Mr. Strom. So today I'm going to talk about one hat, and that is transportation. As Mrs. Eckhart mentioned, we are going to continue to partner with Durham Student Services to provide transportation this year on school buses. We will be following all CDC guidelines for cleaning buses, and students will wear masks on buses. As of right now, because of the health phase we are in, we are planning on opening school, transporting the students on the bus, one student per bench on the bus. Siblings would be able to share seats. For parents, this weekend we will be sending out a transportation request form. There will be a link provided on our website that you can fill out if you think you're going to have a bus transportation need for your student. If your student has transportation in their IEP, they are already on our busing list. You do not need to do anything. Your SPED case manager will arrange that transportation for you. But if your student does not have transportation in an IEP and you feel like you need bus transportation for your student, please be on the lookout for that survey. Not all school buildings or school students are eligible for transportation. So for example, Harney and Cardinal Elementaries have never had bus transportation, and that will stay the same this year. And due to the limited seating on buses this year, like I said, one student per seat, we may not be able to accommodate all transportation requests. That is why we're sending out the form early, so we can get an idea of what parents need and want for transportation and plan accordingly. If we're not able to honor all requests initially, we will have a wait list, and eventually we will try to get all the requests for transportation filled if your student is eligible. So like I said, that form is going to come out this weekend. There will be a link posted on the website. If you cannot fill out the form on the website electronically, there will be paper copies available at the school buildings that parents can pick up and complete. And please fill out that survey or that request form as soon as possible, and that will really help us plan for transportation for your student.
All right, thank you, Aaron. A few questions popping up. Becky, you may or may not have the answer right offhand about Beyond the Bell. I want to know how, if somebody, a parent wants to know how Beyond the Bell will look.
Yep, registration for Beyond the Bell is already open. I think it opened a couple weeks ago. So they are taking enrollment at this time for all of their sites here in South Sioux City Schools, and they will develop a plan that complies with all the things we've talked about today. They'll keep kids in small groups. They'll be wearing masks. They'll be hand sanitizing. They're going to use the outdoor and the gym as much as possible to allow spaces where kids can remove their masks and be physically active. So yes, they can contact Beyond the Bell directly to get enrollment.
All right. There's a question about preschool. Those plans are forthcoming yet. They're still being developed, and you'll be communicated to in the near future. Just like after tonight, we'll have some further communications as things get finalized. Mrs. Daly, I know you're not the band teacher, but you may, Hodan Muhammad, he's going to be an 8th grader, I believe. He's persistent on chat about wanting to know about band. So we've talked about it. We will have band. And maybe if you want to speak a little bit about more about that to him, about, he was asking about instruments and stuff. Don't bring any instruments, anything like that, I would assume, until you get further directions.
Right. Mr. Anderson, your new band director this year, and I have already spoken. And he is going to have a special type of something set up for the students as far as choosing instruments, getting them set up for the kids who do not already have them. You probably don't need your instrument right away. Probably don't bring it. It would be best to keep it at home until you hear from him. He is ready to have band no matter what it looks like, but he's picking out music, and yes, it's going to happen. Don't need to worry about it. Everything will be sent out to you and given to you the first couple days of school.
All right, thank you. This one might be for either Mrs. Odell or for Dr. Heilman. It's about ACTs. We've had 2 or 3 questions about ACTs. Are there plans for ACT tests? What's that look like?
Tracy, jump in if I miss something. We are looking at some dates possible to make up the ACT that was missed in the spring, if that's what the student's referring to. Those decisions obviously come and get communicated by NDE and ACT. So we're looking at those dates, and we will give kids an opportunity, if we're able to redo the assessment that we missed in the spring last year. As for the juniors this year, we are planning on offering or having the ACT again in our building in April. So all of that will kind of come out as we know, and obviously we'll communicate with juniors and seniors, especially and their parents with as much information as soon as we get it. But we have been in contact with them and communicated our desire to continue testing and making up for what we missed last year.
All right, thank you. Somebody keeps asking if you missed it. It was at the beginning where we talked about first day of school is August 13th for those for our elementary. Well, help me out on this one, Dr. Heilman, please, if you guys will. August 13th is for those kids that are new to the building, and half day for elementary, correct? And then August 14th for everybody else?
Yes. I'm going to post a link to the calendar right now. I've got it ready to go.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And like we said before, if you have questions, probably the best resource, because they're directly involved in the planning, is your building principal. If you have questions about staffing, scheduling, what classes are going to look like, so on, and then they'll keep bringing them forward or answer them if they've already decided that. But we will definitely reach out with some more communications. Those staff that are listening, Friday at 1 o'clock, we are planning another YouTube broadcast that is specifically addressing staffing and some of those issues. So tonight was for the community, for our students and parents. But we appreciate everyone participating. I know there's a few questions hanging out there, but I think we covered a lot of the big information. Is there anything else from the cabinet or from the principals that they'd like to add that may have been a question that came up today? Okay. There's a few about more about face masks. I would urge everybody just please read the safety guidelines. It's well laid out in there what the protocol will be for that.
Real quick, and there was a lot of questions about whether mailings coming out and different things, and it's important for me. I'm just going to point out that the Need to Know summer mailer should show up in their mailboxes any day now, within the next few days for sure. And everybody with any postal patrons in our school district should get one of these in the mail. Inside of here will be some forms that can be filled out and save us a lot of work and you a lot of work to get those filled out and even drop them off. And we've added drop boxes to the front of every building. And so that should be really handy for you to drop those things off, filled out, and information. But that has a lot of information on here. And then, of course, you have the opportunity to ask questions on our website with Let's Talk, and or just our contact information is out there as well. Becky, did I miss anything on the mailer?
No, you did not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strom?
Nope. Just previewing the Cardinal Mass. We are all going to be getting, so excited about that.
So yes, thank you. I think we, like I said, we'll post some frequently asked questions in the next couple days, and we'll continue to add to that. I think our plan is, and our hope is to do another one of these in the next few days or a week or so. And if we have to, it kind of depends on where we're at and what kind of new information we have to share. There is some time yet before school starts, and we do have a lot of work to do. And we plan to share that as soon as we know more information and details. But please look over the information we shared, or go back and rewatch this video if you chimed in late.
Hey Lance, what if people want to tune in and watch graduation? How would they do that on Sunday if they're not family members?
Thank you. The link will be on the front page of our website, and we'll share it on social media, much like we did for this event. We'll share it. It's going to be a YouTube link. And so if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, you'll get that as well. You'll even get an update of when that starts. So that's kind of handy. But the main thing is we'll have the links in several different places. Like I said, on our main website page, it'll be on our social media, and it will be shared out on our our graduation page, if you will. And so please check that out. We tried to simultaneously do this YouTube tonight and Facebook at the same time, but the Facebook one crashed a couple of times, and I just had to abort that, and we had to start our program today. But we will. YouTube's been holding up for us all through this COVID situation, and we'll continue to count on it.
Yeah, there's some questions about choices. So we're going to use the quarters and the trimesters at the high school level, but the regular quarters at the elementary and the other levels as progress checkpoints to make sure that we are adjusting as we go. So none of these decisions are, I would say, forever. We are going to learn and adjust and improve as we go. And plus the health measure may change. So the question about choosing, there'll always be choice, but if someone chooses remote learning or in-school learning, that will be for at least one quarter or one trimester if you're at the high school level. we just can't have people moving back and forth. Of course, unless you are sick, then you definitely will move to remote learning. Good question, though. And there's going to be more to come, more to come. I see there's some staff that are asking questions. Those are good questions to bring forward for our staffing meeting, and we'll be able to address those. You know.
And there's some questions about lunch prices and busing prices, and it's in this right here, which I put a link on the YouTube to this in PDF, which you have access to right now. And this will be coming in the mail, so you have a physical copy as well.
Yeah. Registration. Question about registration. When's that going to take place?
Well, there won't be a traditional registration like we've done in the past, but if you're a brand new student to the district and you don't know what school you're headed to, you need to contact our Welcome Center, and that information is on our website, and I can even share the link out on that. There's information about that in here too.
Very good. All right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We will have some more of these to interact, but in the meantime, if you have specific questions, please reach out to us on either Let's Talk or your specific building principal if it's something concerning the schedule or staffing or something right at, directly at your school. But thank you all, and be safe and healthy, and we will see you all soon. Go Cards.